As the Nats have officially wrapped up their spring training down in West Palm Beach, who were the 3 stars of Nats spring training? I'll tell you after this.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, I'm your host, Ryan Clary. You can catch me over on Twitter at RyanClary11 and as well as the show page at LO_Nationals. For all your latest Nationals news and notes, just make sure to check us out over on Twitter. Later on in today's show, the Nats versus the Nats prospects game is today. We'll have that preview for you, as in my opinion, this is the game that we've all been waiting for the entirety of this season. Game 1, it's not literally a regular season game, but you're going to see Brady House. You're going to see all the big prospects up at Nationals Park. Probably the next time you'll see them is when they join the Major League team. So that's going to be a very fun game. We'll keep you up to date with that and what is to come a little bit later on in the show. And also the Nationals made some roster moves over the last few days here. Let's kind of react to them, as in my opinion, this could be setting up for one of the Nationals' better prospects to make the opening day roster. I'll explain that in the second segment of today's show. But let's start off with discussing the 3 stars of spring training. Before that, today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that is prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB. It's a very fun app. Make sure to check it out at PrizePicks. The 3 stars of spring training. This is kind of one of those staples every year of spring training where once it all wraps up, you kind of collect all your eggs, put it in the basket, and see what you have here. We're going to be focusing on a lot of the younger guys here because, in my opinion, we all know this. This is about the prospects. This year in 2024 is about the young guys. So the 3 stars of spring training being younger guys has to be a little bit encouraging for this rebuild. So let's start off with the Nationals. In my opinion, the undebated number 1 prospect from spring training, the guy who took all the headlines, was James Wood. James Wood gets the first star of spring training when it comes for me, because a lot of people were a little concerned, just a little bit, not overly concerned. Obviously, he's still a top 20 prospect in all of baseball, but he did strike out a little bit last year once he reached Double-A Harrisburg. There weren't really a lot of things to really kind of hone in on when it came to James Wood. Some people were a little concerned about the strikeout rate back at the end of last year. Some people were concerned about the lack of not getting on base. I think once he got to spring training, though, something has clicked. Something has clicked within his head to where his approach is completely different. One of the more impressive things that I saw from James Wood was that the fact that this guy was taking his walks in spring training. 11 walks over the course of, about 40, 50 at-bats. I'll take that any day of the week. Now, he did have 13 strikeouts. So what? James Wood is going to strike out. When you can replace that with hitting 4 home runs over the course of spring training, and there were tape measured shots as well, showing off your 70, 75 grade power, whichever site that you check, that's fine. You can strike out. You can be Aaron Judge. I'm not saying he's going to be Aaron Judge, but you understand the point. When you hit home runs, strike out as much as you want. If you're going to hit it at an elite rate the way he did this spring training, that's perfectly fine to me. So going forward with this, even beyond his power, one thing that was really just kind of standing out was James Wood was getting on base. Also defensively as well, made some really nice plays, showed off his arm a little bit, showed off his range as well, and also stealing up to 3 bags. This is not something that you should just be taken for granted. This is a 6'7" mammoth human being stealing bases, hitting 450-foot home runs over the center field wall. This is not normal. We might have taken this for granted because, again, the Nationals have not had a prospect of this caliber, someone of this kind of hyped up and just mammoth athletic freak since who knows when. Maybe Bryce Harper, you could say that. That's not saying too much, but still, James Wood is the real deal. And I think that he showed us that this spring, you can really kind of go into 2024 as he's expected to start in AAA Rochester. He's only one step below the majors at this point. I'm not saying he's going to get called up relatively soon, but I do think the Nationals, and the way how much they played him this year, the way that they kept him around the major league roster for quite some time, I think it kind of goes to show you what they think about James Wood and what he can provide down the line. Our second biggest star of this spring training, the second star, you could say, is Jake Irvin. Jake Irvin is going to be your fourth starter for this Nationals team. In my opinion, I think Jake Irvin was probably the most impressive pitcher out of any of them down the line. Jake Irvin over the last few starts here has been the Nationals' better pitcher by far. The way that he ended spring training, in my opinion, was one of the better, kind of more exciting things to see, because I think Jake Irvin showed us a lot of potential this last year. Getting called up, not a lot of people have heard from him. He was about our 16th best prospect, was coming off Tommy John surgery just a few years ago. Not many people were expecting to have a pretty solid rookie season, but Jake Irvin did. And now going into this year, adding a new pitch to his repertoire, I think this is something to where Jake Irvin could be taking that next step that not a lot of people really predicted. Because if you're really looking at Jake Irvin, one thing that he did do well last year was when he was on his game, he was on. Jake Irvin was really good. And I think down the stretch, if you remember this, midway through the season when David Martinez skipped the start of his after he was struggling in his first few starts in the majors, they skipped the start, had him rest a little bit, and then once he came back in that second half, he was tremendous. I mean, this was someone that you were relying on every 5 days to get the ball and have 5 innings pitched, a handful of runs given up, looking really good for a rookie, young starting pitcher. It was something that's where you could actually build off of that and saving the bullpen in a lot of different situations. Jake Irvin was probably the Nationals' better pitcher, starting pitcher at least, from the second half of the season. That's truly what it felt like. Going forward with this, though, I don't really think a lot of people expected Jake Irvin to kind of end up in this situation. I don't think a lot of people were really necessarily expecting a jump from Jake Irvin. Not many people really saw and kind of procrastinated about what he could be down the line. One thing is for sure with Jake Irvin, this guy's going to be in the rotation this year, and he's going to have a massive impact. He's going to be there as long as he stays healthy. I think you can probably count on him being healthy considering his future here. His future is going to be pretty bright, in my opinion. I think he is going to be one of the guys to take those next steps up. And, Mackenzie Gore is going to be in that conversation as well, as he was a former top prospect, a very high draft pick out of high school, 2017. You can name it. He's going to be very good as well. But Jake Irvin, that is someone to be excited about. That is someone to which, again, is a homebred talent, someone that the Nationals drafted, someone who's going to be developed by this team. And really, it's looking like a success story as you sit here today on March 26, 2024. Going into this season, Jake Irvin, I think he's your third best starting pitcher on this team. Maybe that's not saying too much, but still, if you were to tell me this time last year that a 16th ranked rookie prospect would be your third best starting pitcher on this roster going into 2024, I'd be pretty thrilled. And I think that kind of goes to show you about this organization and the stepping stones they are taking in order to get back to their development ways. But the brightest star of spring training, outside of the first two guys, someone who's going to be making a push to make opening day roster at this point, which we are still trying to wait and see and what happens with Trey Lipscomb. Trey Lipscomb is your third star of spring training. You can talk about it all you want. Everything about this kid is what is impressive. It's not what he can do, it's what he can't do. He can play anywhere. He's a defensive first guy in which a team, Mike Rizzo has always talked about the different ways and how you should be kind of treating these younger prospects, in the way that you should probably not consider Trey Lipscomb to be a utility guy, because they see him as someone who can play a very good third base, very good second base, and move him all around different places. Even they have tried him out in the outfield this spring training. Trey Lipscomb, what he did at the plate was by far and away the most impressive thing of anyone, because not a lot of people were expecting him to bat 400 against major league pitching. Not many people were expecting him to be in the conversation and be on your opening day roster just from what he has done in spring training. That is exactly what he did this year, having a 995 OPS, having a home run, 7 RBIs, and 50 at-bats. He only struck out 7 times and had 5 walks. Trey Lipscomb was the most impressive prospect outside of James Wood. You can now make the case as to why Trey Lipscomb should be your starting second baseman on opening day. Not only are you getting the defensive upside over at second, this is someone who can go from third to second to even short, even play first base, because that is what he did just this last year. And hell, move him to left field if you want. Move him to right field. I'm sure Trey Lipscomb can find a way. This guy is an above average utility defensive kind of guy. Maybe you stick him over at second, you'll get good defense. Maybe you stick him over at third where he won a Gold Glove last year, he'll be just fine over there. That is the kind of product that you're going to be getting from Trey Lipscomb in this year. Defensive first kind of guy, but also has some upside with the bat, maybe a little bit more sneaky power than what you may expect. But I think Trey Lipscomb at this point in time will be your Nationals opening day second baseman. And if not, at this moment on 9:45 a.m. on March 26, 2024, call me crazy, but he's going to be your opening day second baseman once you open up against the Cincinnati Reds. Those are your 3 stars of spring training, but no one shined brighter than Trey Lipscomb, in my opinion, this breakout star from spring training. What a time to be alive. Thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And of course, the Nationals. They had to make some roster moves. They had to kind of improve their roster. What did they do? How does it impact the Nats roster? How does it impact you as a fan? Whatever it is, we'll get you caught up on the latest Nats roster moves after we tell you guys about our good friends over at PrizePicks. And guys, football season may be over, but the action on the floor is heating up, whether it's tournament season or the fight for playoff home court. There's no shortage of high-stakes basketball moments this time of year. Get on the excitement with PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, where you can turn your hoops knowledge into serious cash. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with NBA, NHL, and college basketball entries today on PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. You want to play alongside some of PrizePicks' favorite players like Meek Mill and Sugar Sean O'Malley? You can now find community plays under the promos tab on the top of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the PrizePicks community each week. And guys, it's so easy. Maybe like tonight, you want to take Steph Curry for more than 29 points, or maybe you want to take Anthony Davis for more or less than 2 blocks. You can do that with our friends over at PrizePicks, and that is what I do. But what you got to do is you have to download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app, use code LOCKEDONMLB. Now we get back into it as the Nationals, they are wrapping up spring training here, and the Nationals have made some interesting roster moves. They have optioned Alex Call, Jacob Young, and Drew Millis to AAA Rochester, in which those 2 moves with Alex Call and Drew Millis were all too surprising, but Jacob Young being sent down, in my opinion, was a little bit surprising. He's going to be someone that you'll see up in the majors here probably within the next few weeks if someone gets hurt in the outfield or if Stone Garrett isn't back when we expected, because Stone Garrett is starting the season on the IL, which is a little bit surprising to me, if I'm being 100% honest here. Stone Garrett is someone who, we all kind of expected, I think, to be ready by opening day. I don't think that's the case anymore. Obviously, he'll be starting off on IL. Hopefully, he can get back to 100%. Once he gets back into the fold, this is when it gets very interesting. Who will be the one to get sent down? Who will be the one to get cut down? Because, at this point, Eddie Rosario will be on the major league roster, as well as Jesse Winker. One of those guys could be the odd man out. I was not expecting Jacob Young, though, to be the one sent down. I was expecting whether either it was Jesse Winker or even Eddie Rosario, even though I think the Nationals' plans is for Eddie Rosario to play every single day until he kind of blows up, whether it's a Corey Dickerson of this time last year, where you're expecting him to be your everyday left fielder, but maybe that blows up, maybe it doesn't. We'll just have to see how that plays out. But Jacob Young, don't be discouraged. We all think that this guy could be your center fielder placeholder until Dylan Cruz gets up. Victor Robles is going to get another opportunity. And again, with David Martinez and the way that this Nationals team is run, we probably should have expected that Victor Robles will be your opening day center fielder. It's just what you should expect. They're loyal to a fault. Sometimes it doesn't go their way, and sometimes it does. Seeing Victor Robles get another opportunity, yeah, marching him out there again may not be all that encouraging. You may not be thinking there's not much different about this Nationals team. But one thing is for sure, I think. They do understand that this is a youth movement. They do understand that if you can't get the best out of Victor Robles as soon as the season starts, if he struggles immediately, you're going to see them pull the plug relatively quick. I don't think they're going to be DFAing him at some point this season. I don't think they'll be even moving off him at this point of the season. But if there was a time to trade away Victor Robles, the time would be now. I'm not saying that they are. I'm not saying that they should. If you are going to be trading Victor Robles, the time is probably now. His stock is not going to be much higher than what it is now. If you were to have a 900 OPS, you're not going to be getting that much more for him because, let's be honest, the stats that he had this last year and the stats that he had this spring training, they just simply are not sustainable. I have not seen enough from Victor Robles to say this guy's going to be an impact player. It doesn't matter for how much power he hit over the last month. It doesn't matter for how often he got on base and how his strikeout numbers were crunched. Whatever it is, Victor Robles, we know it here. It's not going to develop now because it hasn't developed over the last 6 years. It just isn't going to happen. They know that. They know that that's not going to be the case with him. And I think going forward, the Nationals, they do probably expect him to not necessarily flare out, but they see the same Victor Robles as we do. They're going to talk about how we've seen him take a turn. He's earned the right to start on opening day. Fine. But I'm not counting it out just yet. If they were to move off Victor Robles, we'll see about that. But still, Alex Call kind of being one because, again, he killed the baseball this year. He made it a competition at some point in time to where I thought he was going to be one of the first cuts in the outfield, but he made it difficult for them. He's going to be optioned. Again, you'll see him up at some point this season as well. That won't be surprising to anyone. But also Drew Millis, another catcher who, in my opinion, doesn't really say all too much, for being honest, was the better defensive catcher over Keibert Ruiz and even over Riley Adams at times. Drew Millis is someone, again, I don't know what his future holds here because the Nationals obviously like their tandem with Keibert Ruiz and Riley Adams. If one of those two goes down, you have Drew Millis, but where is he going to fit in the fold after this? Are the Nationals going to move off of Riley Adams at the deadline if he puts up another pretty gigantic offensive season yet again after coming off a broken hamate bone? We'll see what the Nats do, but still, you do have someone in waiting with Drew Millis in which you can kind of trust. You can kind of roll back and say, if this doesn't work out well, if Keibert Ruiz can't get it better defensively, you do have someone in-house who will at least kind of stop that gap there. Because Drew Millis is, right now, as we sit here today, is the better defensive catcher than both Riley Adams and Keibert Ruiz. Unfortunately for Keibert Ruiz, it's not saying all too much, considering he had one of the worst defensive catching seasons we've seen in quite some time for Nationals catcher this last year. But still, you can kind of go into the season thinking, well, if this doesn't work out, which not looking all too great, you can always fall back on Drew Millis to save the day, I guess. You could say that. But the most surprising roster move, in my opinion, or not surprising, I think the most concerning one, in my opinion, was Jose Frere going on the 60-day IL with a back injury. I've always said I think Jose Frere is going to be the Nationals' better left-handed pitcher out of this bullpen. I think he's part of their plans for years to come. Sitting at 23, 24 years old, Jose Frere showed a lot this spring training, showed a lot last year when he first came up in the middle of the season. Jose Frere is someone I think the Nationals will kind of be their workhorse moving forward. I think he's going to be someone where you get in the midsummer, he's going to be kind of your setup guy. He's going to be your setup guy of the future for whoever the Nationals closer is, whether it is Tanner Rainey, whether it's Mason Thompson in a year and a half. Whatever the Nationals' plans are for the closer position, I think Jose Frere is probably going to be the setup guy for whoever that may be. Think 5 years down the line. Yarlene Susana is your closer, coming in and pumping 102 miles per hour off the get-go. Jose Frere will be your setup guy. Seeing him start on the 60-day IL, number one, a little concerning, considering I didn't think it was going to be that serious. I thought it would maybe be a 15-day IL stint, and then we'll see what happens. But 60 days, next 2 months, sideline, it's not a great start to the campaign. You're going to have some time getting back, getting into rehab, and then we'll see Jose Ferrer hopefully on the Major League roster, maybe sometime by June or mid-June. We'll see what happens when what the Nationals decide to do there, but it's a little concerning, to say the least. But going forward, you can now count on one thing, and that one thing is the Nationals bullpen will be pretty damn good because FanGraphs, they have them right now ranked as the 14th best bullpen preseason-wise in Major League Baseball. That is by far and away the Nationals' best position group, and it comes at a little bit of a surprise, I guess you could say, because not many people were expecting this Nats bullpen to be all too great, but above average. I'll take that any day of the week. Thank you all for making Nats Locked On Nats your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Next, let's preview this Nats versus Nats prospects game. Yes, we have been waiting for this one for quite some time. Let's get into it after I tell you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. And guys, say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney, whether you're betting on a big upset or a one seed. It's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook because right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Again, that is $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines, and you could even pick who's going to win it all. Not going to lie, I put a little futures bet on Auburn to win it all. Did not go my way, but you can even look ahead of time. Like, what about Duke? What about all the other different blue bloods that are still in it, like UConn? They seem pretty damn good right now. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they gut down the Nets. Again, that is FanDuel.com/lockedon. Now we get back into it as the Nationals are taking on the Nationals prospects today over at Nationals Park. This is your quick little preview of that. This is going to be a fun game because, again, you're seeing the future against the present. I would not be surprised if the futures, the prospects, beat the Nationals major leaguers at this point. You have Dylan Cruz. You have Trey Lipscomb. You have James Wood, Brady House, Elijah Green, Christian McCarrow, Jackson Rutledge. All the different guys that you want to see, Robert Hassler, all on this roster. All of them. If you are going over to Nationals Park today, number one, this is probably going to be your favorite game of the year to see because you're seeing two good clubs, the prospects against a major league team. Pretty cool, number one. And number two, it's just going to be just a very fun environment, I think. I don't know how many people that they are expecting over there, but I would expect a pretty big crowd considering Nationals fans, they know their baseball. And number two, they know that this year is about the future. This is going to be your chance to see all these younger guys take Nationals Park and take the field with all the different festivities out there. This is your chance to see them up close and up personal. I think it's going to be a very cool experience. I think the Nationals did well on this, and ultimately, we'll just see if it pans out well, if the fans show up, and if people are excited because I can sure as hell tell you, I'm very excited to see this Nationals game today. Nats prospects, we'll see what happens. My little bold take, Trey Lipscomb, or actually James Wood. He goes yard. I think he goes yard at Nationals Park. The fans lose it. Everyone loses it. Someone's going to do something big and get everyone excited and say, should James Wood make the opening day roster? We'll just have to see. Thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. I will catch you guys over at Nats Park. Enjoy the game today if you're up there. If not, keep your eye out for Locked On Nationals. We'll be talking to you tomorrow. We are 2 days closer to spring training or to opening day. I'll have a good one. Go Nats.